Hello, everyone, and welcome to ELIAN'S JOY. I'm so glad to be here today. Namaste. Good to see you. In this episode today, I have a guest, and I'm very excited about having a guest today, all the way from far away. Bethan Mary Thompson is a warrior, and she's going to tell us why today. We really want to find out. She's going to give us a couple of golden nuggets. She's going to tell us about her journey and what she is specialized in. She is a coach, and I would love to welcome Bethan. I was going to say Mary Bethan Thompson to the show today. Welcome to Alien's Joy. I'm so glad to have you. Tell me where you're at.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited about this interview and that. I'm coming from UK in South Wales in Cardiff, which is the capital, and a little village called Rubina, which is just outside Cardiff, about 5 miles down the road. So it's evening here, but it's great to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited you're here. I have to ask you, what's the weather like right now? Because we're always talking about British weather in America, right? No.
It's very much up and down. It is colder, but I think obviously people are laying up as I've got my cardigan on here. People are laying up far more than wearing more jumpers and that, but it's fine. It's not as cold as it's been, and it's very, very wet, but I think that's around the world at the moment with everything else. So yeah, I think it's always a topic, but you can get out and about and that's the main thing.
That's the main thing. Probably the same weather as we have in rainy, wet Texas right now. We met on a social networking platform. We go both there frequently, and it's wonderful to meet a lot of people on that platform. And then we reached out to each other. Tell me a little bit about your journey and into the nowadays where you have been and why you became so specialized, Bethan.
Yes, I was a former caregiver, and before that I did have a prior life. I mean, I was young leader, Queen's Guide. I did all the things, speaking many years ago as a union rep, and worked for European Summit as a speaker, and talking to people about how wonderful our city is and where I live. And I took all that for granted. And then my mum had cancer. And then my mum had cancer and vascular dementia. And then I obviously was working with a very big finance company, and things started to deteriorate because she was having falls. And the last fall, unfortunately, was the change in my life and hers. I was arrested and they thought I'd hurt her. But one of the skills that I immediately took up, because I was always journaling and doing diaries and writing, was I'd written stuff in a diary of her falls, and praise God for it, because that was so important at that time. And 17 and a half weeks, I battled to bring my mum home. She went into hospital, and sadly, the cancer escalated to vascular dementia, and my mum died. And then I had to start thinking about how I would reinvent myself or bring myself back into a world which had completely changed by then. We were heading towards COVID, and I decided that I would join a mental health charity. And within 3 weeks, I was in a room with 60 people, telling them what it was like. People from the local health board in the UK NHS and other charities, and saying, this is how it was, this is what went wrong, this is what could have been done better. And I had a new dress, pair of shoes, and I can still hear my mum saying, yeah, you need these things. Even when I went years ago to a conference and said, no, I don't need these things, mum, and she said, yes, you do. You always need that good skirt, that good jacket or blazer, and tidy shoes and tights, and you'll go a long way, girl. And yeah, I was I walked in that room thinking about my mum, and there was a girl that did her speech, and I thought, how am I going to do this? It's been a long time. And I stood there and I made charts and spoke to people, and they applauded. 40 minutes later, I was still speaking and thinking, oh, people want to listen to me. And it's gradually grown. And then COVID came. So I joined a leadership program in Chicago online because everyone was moaning and saying, we can't go out. And I said, well, if we can't go out, I'm going to do something. So I joined church programs for my own self-care and took time to spend time doing the things I need to do while I was grieving. But in the meantime, and I went and spent a lot of time in my garden and did the things that I needed to, as we all need to do with our mental health. So I sat outside with coffees and made sure I had breaks as if I was working. And I got up in the morning and I listened to podcasts and watched speakers and then got my grant. And then I started my coaching and talks. And I've just grown since then.
Good for you. And thank you for sharing your story. I'm so sorry about the loss of your mom and everything that it entailed. It's always really difficult to, to go through phases of that big grief loss. But it's, on the other hand, as you say, and this is so important for women because we make those shows mainly for women. I know a lot of my male friends are watching as well, but it's targeted to a lot of women that are going through sometimes that midlife transformation, right? We have just worked and we've done it all, and we've been just really busy without really finding or why or our purpose in that matter. But then through a lot of sometimes difficulties in life or grief or just illness, sickness, sorrow, then our own wealth comes out, right? Our own expertise. We move that around and we use that to start working with it. And that's exactly what you're doing. And I applaud you for that. You are a warrior. And you found out through that event that you're a great speaker and all these people stayed and there was your purpose.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And I think that the more as time goes on and the more you think about what gives you joy, and it's a really traumatic time, even now, sometimes, my mum's birthday's coming up and you think, how are you going to deal with that? Because, you're going to deal with emotions, your own health issues. But for the listeners out there, you don't realize how strong you can be and your resilience and the support that's out there. And that's why I chose to help others. I could have gone the opposite way and just thought, oh, be a carer and, go and work in a care home and that. But I wanted to when my mum first had cancer, I went and did teaching and in a little infant school near me and did a program. And then obviously my mum got worse, so I couldn't carry on. But I wanted to use all the skills from even childhood and sat down and thought about all the skills that I could actually bring to my coaching and to my talks and to how I can help others out there and get them from the darkness to the light. Absolutely. Which I've written about as well. So instead of just and basically using all my lived experience, but also from my child, what my mum had taught me. Sure. Things that you learn that you take for granted, to bring it. My dad was a sea captain, so he was a leader. I looked at my two brothers, and one is in a prison, one is drives trucks and that, and one works in the forces. We all got the same, mum and dad. We've all got the same brain. But we've all used our skills in different ways. I went to college, they didn't. Yeah. But I really wanted people to know now that you learn to live with grief. Yes. And how it can it'll never go.
It'll not go away. Yeah.
It will never, because that was my life. I shopped online. Hello, people. I love my fashion.
Yes.
I love clothes. And when it's her birthday next week, I will buy something to remind me of a better time. And that, and even though you haven't got lots of money, people are suffering around the world now, and I can help them find the strategies so they can get through those really, really tough times of planning after. Because to be honest, it can be even harder after they've died than when they're living. Because you have to think of, we were talking earlier about having our hair cut, and we both laughed because I've got long hair like everyone sees. And we all take it for granted that you can go to the hairdressers. I always went to good hairdressers, and suddenly you haven't got that money. Who's going to pay for it?
Mhm. Yep.
Who's going to pay? Because your shape has changed. And I say this to everyone, and I've said it in all my interviews, is that men carers and women,
Mhm.
your shape changes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
The
And I
world
love the
has
fact that you
changed.
share that, because it's difficult all over the world for everybody right now. I mean, there's just too much going on, right? There's a lot
Exactly.
going on, and to stay in your happy place. I'm so glad you shared about your journaling, for instance, and what that did. So a lot stays with you. There's a lot already written down. It kind of helps you out also when you got wrongfully accused. You had written so much down. That is also a great way to stay really close to yourself. And just like gardening, I used it as an example, for mental health and self-care, that we have to do those things, going to the hairdresser or get a mani-pedi, whatever, that kind of thing, small things that
Exactly.
make us happy. Yeah.
Even buying a little plant that, come Easter now. Easter's coming. If people haven't got loads of money in that, in the first year or so, when it really was tough, and I was thinking, what am I going to do? I went and bought little seeds and packaged 50p seeds, and I put them in a
Mhm.
pot. And now I've got gorgeous lavender pots outside, because we always did our pots
Beautiful.
outside because
Yes.
we couldn't go far, because as a caregiver you can't go out to meals, and sometimes it's still difficult for many carers, because they, like myself, have been out there for a long time, to accommodate that time zone. Is fine. Suddenly you've got time, but what are you going to do with it? Because you your friends have moved on, family have moved on, and you've been almost left behind, and you have to try and find something to fill that void. And it can be really, really difficult for people to find that. Even the sleep patterns as well
Yeah.
can be really difficult. But I co-produced a sleep course with a college here, and I've done a lot of stuff like that, training, dementia training I did after, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot in the nights when my mum was dying. I looked back yesterday when I was thinking about how we were going to tell listeners, and you can use that time to think about planning and thinking what you need.
Yeah.
And actually those things that, because
Absolutely.
you can help them to certain things, but you're going to be left behind, and there is certain things that you need to have for you.
Absolutely. Well, you need to make sure that you feel good first before you start helping somebody else as well, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
this is the self-care that I talk about a lot. And I do work with my clients, and sometimes it is grief. I always know that even in times of loss and that despair and that grief, that we are overwhelmed with people reaching out to us in the beginning, and everybody comes by, and we have soup and everything being brought over. And then after a couple of weeks, or after a couple of months, we really have that loneliness starting to come back in, and we really start to go into that place where everybody's back into their own life. And like you said, that's important to kind of at that moment really keep focused on self-care and supporting yourself and learning and moving forward. So I love the fact that you shared that. You also said you had, for the listeners, 3 golden nuggets to help support your family, or support family overall in caring for loved ones. Share a few of those things um, that you find very imperative for support. I lost you on your sound, Bethan. Are you muted? Try it out for a little bit what you have there, because now I can't hear you. You're out. Now I can't hear you. There we go. Yeah.
So sorry, it went on
No, you're
mute
fine. You're fine. Yeah.
and that. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. Stuff happens. This is life. You know, everybody's walking in and out. Tell me a little bit about the golden nuggets, the things that you really found so imperative to support families during caretaking, or what you have learned taking care of your mom.
Yes, I think that one of the most important things is to keep a diary of things that happen, especially the falls, and if they hurt themselves. I think that is hugely important to have, because somewhere down the line somebody could always ask you, because there's safeguard and risks and that, especially if they're at home. And even if they're in a home, it's quite handy to take a little notebook with you to write these things down of how they are, and ask the questions, you know, how they've been in that. Sometimes when I was out caring, and you know, and I would go to the shops for food, because obviously I did need to go out, I would leave a notebook in the house for the carers, so that they could write things that my mum had said, or how she was and that, which I kept for after. And that would also help you in knowing how to deal with their cognitive behavior, because as the day goes, we all know that the sundowning is a very hard time. It's dark here now and people don't always know day and night, so that really helps. Number two, if they have gone, to get you through the grief, one of the last things I learned from my counselling was write a letter to them. Some people burn them, and some people actually keep them. But write to them. It doesn't matter how, whether you write a paragraph, a sentence, or whatever. And just keep doing it. Doesn't matter. You could stop whenever you want. You could go for a week. You could go for 2 weeks. But if your emotions catch up, that is a great way to cope with your grief.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Absolutely. Writing helps. Absolutely.
It's so important. And I think, I know some people don't like it if they can't. There's so many things you can use. There's apps that you can do, even
recording.
Recording and recording the letters, listening to music. Play and go to the places, or go to the places and take that time out, whether it's with family or you're on your own with your family, because when you're caring, you go through all those challenges of difficult decisions, especially with dementia, but it may not be dementia, it may be something else. But with dementia, you know that you're seeing your loved ones go. And I'll give an example, is that my mum was a war evacuee, and I was lucky enough to hear her say to me that how she left her own mother. Those things you can, when they're gone, you can't ask. So ask them the questions that you want to know. And sometimes that may be difficult, but if you've got your own children, then you can think that you can pass it on, you can broaden it out and that, and they'll have an understanding, because it impacts everyone, and each person deals with the dementia, the cancer, and you as a carer role differently. And people can be very, you can get isolated. You can get lonely, isolated, and some family members reject the carers.
Absolutely.
You've done your job, good job. Now, you know, time for you to get on, and just leave you alone and find your own way.
Yes, absolutely. And if, of course, in every family, or many families, as we know, there's always a little discrepancy about who's being the caretaker and the other one's getting off the hook with some things, right? So it's not a really healthy situation, or a difficult situation, let's say it that way, for every family to deal with that, and to just really go through that and then find out who does what and how can we evenly divide that and how can we balance that a little bit in responsibilities. But there's one person of choice, in this case it was you, who stayed so close to mom and had to see all that and had to see everything she went through. So it is a very difficult journey. Some of the things that you said are so imperative, because one of the things, I'm healthy, but one of the things, I wrote a lot of things down in my book for my son because I wanted him to know a few things in case it happens. And I came from a different background. My mom just passed away from one day to another, unexpected. So I wanted to know so many things. You see,
Exactly.
so
And
it's so
even now,
imperative what we're talking about.
I find that you do years after, and I've met so many women that are like in their 70s, their 80s, they want to ask their mothers something, even after all this time, and you can't.
Yeah.
You can't go back.
Mhm.
You have a life to live. I mean, I'm not old, I'm coming up to 60, but I've still got life to live. And
Yes.
I've had my own health issues like we all do, but you have that time. And I think it's just important to tell people now that they can come through it, and I can help them deal with some very difficult things, or get them, you're not gonna you're going to bring them from the darkness to some sort of light and peace.
Absolutely.
And they can also get support from other people, which I can signpost them to as well, because obviously I work with the mental health charities here internationally. I'm working with international charities as well. I also write articles to bring people to understand that, even like this morning, I've heard that a lady from my church, who I'm very, friendly, I went back to church and now don't go as often, but they come to me because with health reasons. But her husband has sadly died, yesterday from dementia. Every hour, every minute, some family is losing somebody. But most of the time, the families haven't had the training or the understanding to cope with the cognitive behavior. So
Absolutely.
it's easier, or should we put them in a home? Shall we things? And people often say, I want to go home, because they want to be surrounded by their own things and their own home.
Yes, absolutely. You hear that so much. Yes.
I understand that it's difficult for some, but even going part-time to see somebody in a home, you can do little things that bring the home to them.
Absolutely. Yes. Tell me a little bit about your upcoming events and speaking about this topic, and where people can find you, because that's what we're doing. We're in the business of helping, and just not one-on-one, but you do a lot of speaking and courses and events. So tell me a little bit about
it. My main platform at the moment is LinkedIn and Facebook, so they can find me there. And as you said, I'm now creating my program, which should be up and running shortly. So just working on that, so we can put the details out there for people.
Yes.
And I'm organizing 2 summits. One is for a men's summit, which deals with men's mental health and men's issues. So that is coming up. So we're looking for speakers, and we're pulling together some speakers and people. I've got some great personal stories of how they've overcome certain things. And then I'm also doing some collaboration with 2 great people I met in a network, just like yourself, to talk about grief for adults and children, and obviously share some amazing stories that people have helped use their grief, like myself, and have used their lived experiences to go into leadership, like I did, and like I have, and coaching, and having a business. I mean, my business is called Night Butterfly, so people can go and have a look. I'm on YouTube as well, so they'll be able to see this on YouTube, on my other podcasts and that, and listen to what I have to say, and hopefully share it with others. and they may think that it's not for them at the moment. But what I can say to listeners is bear that in mind. You may think, oh, that's not going to happen, or, you know, I don't need that. But there may come a day when you will need that dementia training, and you can support your auntie, your mother, even young people have onset dementia. And you, if you've got that little bit of training and that, you can make a huge difference, and a huge difference to your family, of understanding how this awful disease,
Yes.
which cancer can escalate and even make worse and shorten lifespan, can create the best memories, the best whatever that you can deal with.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's so important. I think, just like you said, a lot of us just want to kind of hop over that. We don't want to deal with that yet, because, you know, that might be just something that we don't want to think about or deal with yet. But it's so important to be, and I always say that in my shows as well, about everything, to be proactive so that we don't get surprised by things that happen in life. One of my sayings that I always use is, life still will happen to you. It doesn't get any easier. You just get better at it. And you just shared that with us. So I'm so happy that you did. Thank you for being vulnerable, being amazing, and sharing your knowledge and your expertise on this, and sharing your story, because we love you. And it's just wonderful that you were able to give that feedback on what we need to be aware of. And the difficult thing is that, yes, we don't want to think about the difficult things, but we have, just like I say, the more prepared we are and the more knowledge we have, more powerful, the more we are able to help ourselves, our loved ones in time of trouble, and the whole support group that comes with it. Support the whole group that comes with that. So thank you so much.
Exactly. And
Thank
I
you so
think
much.
that's the most important thing for listeners to understand, is that if you can put things in place, I did have things in place, but there is still things that even more, if I put in place, would have been for myself as well as my mum. So, you know, and that's what you need to think about, really, is the things that for both of you, for both, and that, so that to make life easier after. Because even our benefit system now, the world has changed so much because of COVID.
Absolutely.
That you even more so, I think there is more need for planning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, all the way from the other side of the ocean. Thank you so much for being far away and sharing with us. And luckily, it's not in the middle of the night, so that's good. I'm very grateful meeting you. I know that I will put our information and our replay out on social media, on all my links, and of course on YouTube, and then you can share it. And we will share some information about your upcoming events as well, so people can find that. Thank you for watching. To all the people that watched our show, this episode, on any network where you are, on any time where you are. This is always available on winwinwomen.tv. We are here for you every week, and I'm very grateful for this episode with beautiful Bethan Thompson. Thank you so much. I will see you next week. Thanks everybody for watching. ELIAN'S JOY. Namaste. Thank you.
Blessings.
Bye.